In the 19th aphorism of the Organon of Medicine, Samuel Hahnemann establishes a strict requirement for healing. He states that a medicine cures a sick individual exclusively because it possesses the inherent power to alter the state of human health. This means a substance's curative power cannot be inferred from its botanical classification, its traditional folk reputation, or its chemical analysis. Knowing a plant's molecular structure tells you nothing about the specific human sensations it can modify. Instead, Hahnemann argues that medicines function by producing an artificial disease within the human organism. This disease-producing ability is the precise engine of a medicine's curative power. A substance that cannot safely produce observable symptoms in a living person lacks the dynamic force required to cure one. We can see this dynamic interaction visualized here. The human organism sits at the center, susceptible to distinct forces. On one side, the natural disease distorts health. On the other, a medicinal substance introduces its own specific artificial alteration to counteract it. Within this framework, a substance's capacity to cure is mathematically and dynamically equal to its capacity to produce observable alterations in a healthy person. If this medicinal power cannot be deduced from a laboratory chemical analysis, how exactly is this force safely mapped, measured, and recorded for clinical use? Early observations often originated in historical apothecaries, like the one seen here, where practitioners noted the toxicological effects of high doses. But toxicology only reveals crude end-stage organ damage. It misses the delicate modalities and mental characteristics required for precise prescribing. To capture those subtle details, the field developed pathogenic trials, commonly known as provings. This is the systematic administration of controlled medicinal substances to healthy human subjects to observe their exact effects. During a proving, practitioners record specific data parameters. They document the exact location and sensation of physical changes, shifts in thermal regulation and thirst, and subtle alterations in the subject's mental and emotional state. The data is organized into a materia medica grid, categorized by location, sensation, modalities, and generals. As repeated proving trials yield consistent observations, the grid fills. This rigorous repetition filters out random noise, isolating the true objective medicinal effects. These provings create a distinct, highly specific effect pattern for every medicine. Having this mapped profile is the mandatory prerequisite before any clinical prescribing can occur. With a mapped materia medica in hand, the practitioner faces the clinical challenge of symptom matching. The outcome depends entirely on how the medicine's pattern relates to the sick patient. Consider this pattern box outlining a specific patient totality. A 24-year-old presents with a right-sided throbbing headache. The pain is severely aggravated by bright light and movement, and relieved by lying still in the dark. The patient is thirstless and irritable. Now, let's introduce medicine C, a chemical painkiller. It provides a numbing effect directly opposite to the headache pain. Hahnemann defines this as the antipathic or opposite symptom relation. The treatment directly opposes the primary localized complaint while ignoring the surrounding modalities and mental state. The immediate result of an opposite medicine is its primary action, a period of rapid but highly temporary symptom relief. This sine wave graph illustrates the physiological response. We see a strong downward curve representing the suppressive primary action of medicine C numbing the pain. But this is immediately followed by an aggressive, amplified upward spike. That upward spike is the secondary action, the automatic counteraction of the vital force. The body rebounds, ultimately intensifying the original headache once the medicine wears off. Treating a symptom with its exact opposite creates an illusion of relief. This type of palliation merely suspends the pain in the short term, while the inevitable secondary reaction deepens the disease state. This leads us to the second therapeutic pathway analyzed in the Organon, the dissimilar or allopathic relation. Returning to our patient totality box, let's test a new option, medicine B. This profile shows dull occipital pain, improving with movement, and intense thirst. Watch the geometry as medicine B attempts to interlock with the patient's totality. It fails completely. The modalities, location, and thirst levels do not align.
Hahnemann documented exactly what happens when a stronger, completely dissimilar medicine like this is introduced into a sick organism. The stronger dissimilar disease forces the original illness into temporary suspension. The headache is hidden while the body deals with the new medicinal stress, but it remains uncured. If the dissimilar medicine and the natural disease happen to be of equal strength, they will simply coexist in different organ systems, creating a complicated double disease for the patient to endure. Brute physiological strength without symptom similarity is medically useless for achieving a permanent cure. Dissimilar treatments merely rearrange or temporarily bury the pathology. The final pathway is the core of the homeopathic method, detailed in aphorisms 22 through 27, the similar symptom relation. Here is our original patient totality compared against medicine A. The proving profile for medicine A shows a right-sided throbbing headache. It is worse from light and motion, better from stillness, thirstless and irritable. When we align medicine A with the patient's symptoms, the geometry locks perfectly over the natural disease state. The characteristics are identical. This is Hahnemann's argument for curative displacement. When the characteristic features of the artificial disease perfectly correspond to the natural disease, displacement occurs. There is one strict mechanical requirement for this to work. The administered similar medicinal disease must be dosed to be slightly stronger than the natural illness. We can visualize this dynamic displacement as an energy wave. The slightly stronger artificial wave perfectly aligns with the natural disease wave. Because their frequencies match exactly, the stronger medicinal force absorbs the weaker natural one, resolving into a calm, flat baseline. This relies on a crucial safety mechanism. Unlike a natural disease, the medicinal disease is carefully dosed to be inherently temporary and self-limiting. Once this temporary artificial stimulus completes its brief action and fades away, the vital force is left completely free of both diseases. Permanent cure demands this exact geometric correspondence of symptoms. It is the similarity, not the strength alone, that allows the safe, dynamic displacement of the disease. Aphorisms 30 through 33 raise a theoretical question. If a stronger similar influence is required to displace an illness, why rely on medicinal preparations instead of simply exposing the patient to another natural disease? This comparative matrix outlines Hahnemann's answer. Let's look at the operational differences between a natural disease and a medicinal influence. On the left, relying on a natural disease is flawed. Environmental exposure is variable and completely accidental. It requires a specific individual susceptibility to even catch the illness, and once contracted, a natural disease can persist indefinitely, causing permanent tissue damage. On the right, the medicinal influence provides exact clinical advantages. It is intentionally selected by the practitioner to match the patient. It is easily controlled in its dosage, and it is designed to be strictly temporary. Furthermore, Hahnemann posits the concept of universal susceptibility. While you may or may not catch a passing flu, the human vital force is reliably and universally susceptible to properly prepared medicines at all times. Artificial medicinal diseases are theoretically superior to natural ones because they grant the practitioner absolute control over the timing, the specific symptom similarity, and the duration of the intervention. We can now translate this theoretical architecture into the strict workflow required for clinical application. Look at this circular 5-step workflow model. Step 1 requires practitioners to prove medicines on healthy subjects to build the materia medica. Step 2 requires eliciting the complete patient totality, mapping every modality and general symptom. Step 3 is comparison. The practitioner must compare these characteristic patterns to find exact similarity, rigorously filtering out any dissimilar or opposite medicinal relations. Finally, steps 4 and 5 administer the precise similar dose to initiate dynamic displacement, and monitor the whole patient to ensure true recovery, not just temporary palliation. Within this framework, prescribing merely on the diagnostic name of a disease is clinically ineffective. The geometry requires exact individual correspondence. True homeopathic cure is never an accident. It is the calculated application of a similar temporary artificial force, explicitly designed to displace illness and restore holistic balance.